to episode 3 of Level Up Watches The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is a spin-off series from the Level Up and Friends podcast, where those of us from the comic book and video game shop Level Up Entertainment in Mays Landing and soon to be Summers Point, New Jersey, get together with some friends and discuss the latest in pop culture entertainment. And if you don't know by now, you're 3 episodes in, but we are covering The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm your host, Harry, and I am joined by the only man to give music recommendations from the 40s to Bucky Barnes, Marvelous Mike.
Good evening, Harry. I feel my background says should be a Masterpiece Theater.
Masterpiece Theater, why?
I don't know, it's a nice chair as opposed to my basement.
Yes, you did come to us this week from a new locale. Yes. Much appreciated. And, the anticipation, I had to send off all these requests to get an early access look at what this week's Marvel item is going to be that you're going to show us. And I couldn't spoil it for anybody. So, I don't even have the inside information. This is new to me.
Well, so as you know, we still have 3 weeks after today. And by my math, I ain't got 3 more Marvel Legos to show. So we're doing a little switch this week in honor of Easter. And I'm showing my favorite Easter candy. It's the Easter candy of the week we're going to show. And It is the Palmer Easter Bunny, my Parsnip Pete.
What does this have to do with Marvel?
Well, I don't have any Legos to show this week, so I made it a new segment, the Easter candy of the week.
You're fired. If I remember correctly,
Easter chocolate out there, Palmer bunnies.
They do not sponsor this program unless they're sending money.
They might after this.
If I remember correctly, your Marvel Lego Iron Man frame has configurable pictures. You can change it. So why not for next week, you just make another Iron Man picture?
No, I got rid of the instructions. I burned them. That was the most tedious. I loved it. It's beautiful. That was the most tedious set I ever had to build.
It's called dedication to your craft.
I do have one more that we'll show next week.
Okay.
I thought it was nice, switch things up a little bit, with the holiday and all.
I thought it was going to be in the shape of Iron Man or something, something that relates to the episode. Maybe like snake guts in like a shot or something. I don't know, but that had nothing to do with anything. Waste of all of our time. All right, let's jump into it. So this is episode 3. We are at the halfway point of The Falcon and Winter Soldier. This episode is called Power Broker. And boy, do we have... Do you have just thoughts off the bat before we kind of break it down, go through the scenes?
Well, yeah, like I said last week, this is now the start of Act 2 of the show, and it got us the action. It brought us to a new world in Marveldom, one that I, being a movie, not a comics fan, never heard of. So there was a lot of intrigue, there was a lot of action, and there was still a lot of thrills. So I am excited. The fastest 45 minutes in television.
And, very much so where WandaVision expanded on Age of Ultron and was sort of almost like a direct sequel to that film. This episode in particular felt like a direct sequel to Civil War, because we saw a few big names, some characters that we haven't really seen or caught up with since Civil War. And this was like a one big reunion from that movie. So we'll get into it. Let's break down this episode. So it starts off, speaking of WandaVision, I thought we had crossed over for a second, because it starts off with this weird random PSA commercial for the Global Repatriation Council.
First off, before we even get to that, I'm happy to report that the Marvel Fanfare was back in all its glory after taking a week off. So that got a standing ovation in the Marvelous Mike household.
They got your letters.
So yes, but continue on.
We didn't really touch on the Global Repatriation Council, or GRC, last week. We did get a little bit of information on them from John Walker, New Cap, and from the Flag Smashers and Carly Morgenthau, that this group is sort of stepping up to help the refugees of the blip, the people who are homeless, who need shelter, need supplies. Um, and that's sort of what this commercial is about. It's totally breaks the tone of the rest of the show, because it's like this really happy-go-lucky infomercial about the GRC and how great they are. Their three mission statement, their three words are reset, restore, rebuild. So I had written those down in case they come back, in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, the GRC. So apparently that's another organization that we have to keep track of here. And immediately goes right from that commercial to a GRC van that pulls up and doors open. Some soldier-like people come out. The van side door opens and it's John Walker, new cap. And he's a direct employee or consultant for the GRC. And they're breaking down into the shelter that we saw from last week's episode. They're on the trail of the Flag Smashers and Carly Morgenthau, and they're interrogating everybody. They're setting people up for arrests, trying to track down where she is, where they went. And New Cap gets this suspect and is trying to figure out what's going on, and the guy just spits in his face. And for a second we see John Walker snap. He grabs the guy, pushes him up against the wall, and he yells, "Don't you know who I am?" Very dramatically.
They know who I am.
I don't quite remember Steve Rogers ever handling suspects.
That was very yes, and that's exactly what I said to Kristen during that scene. That this is not Captain America. He, never resorted to showing, showboating and with his name, and even that glorification of the violence to get at what he wanted was something that we had not seen from Captain America.
Yeah, and just think of the image. I mean, from an international standpoint, all the other GRC staffers, other than John Walker and Hoskins was with him as well, they're all, they have the gear from that country. I think they're in Madrid, maybe still. And here's this man decked out in an American flag, giving orders, taking names, doesn't speak the language. He had to get Hoskins to come over and translate, and now making threats. And it's sort of like that, in a nutshell, that American stereotype of, invading other countries, taking names, not
that grand American arrogance.
Yes, and being arrogant, and don't you know who I am? So where last week we humanized John Walker, to the point where we almost felt bad for him, but there were a few things that slipped through. Here, the first sign of any kind of struggle, and he's already pulling the "look at me, don't you know who I am" card. So interesting. We won't spend too much time with John Walker. The scene shifts to something else, and we really don't pick up. He gets one more scene later on in the episode, so not much John Walker this week.
Well, just to pause, I going completely off topic, because that's what I like to do. It appears I saw on Twitter today that the actor who portrays him has been getting tons and tons of hate mail.
Yes. So Wyatt Russell is the actor who portrays him, son of Kurt Russell, who
really?
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. It's his son. Kurt Russell, you'll remember from Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yes.
But yes, he has been receiving death.
So is that Kate Hudson's? Isn't that her mother, Goldie Hawn? I'm now completely off topic.
I have no idea. I just know that because I, doing research for the show. So, independent, yeah, to the cloud. So he has been getting death threats. Unfortunately, and this happened to Peter Quill's actor too, Chris Pratt.
He deserved the hate mail. He deserved the hate mail. I'm sorry.
After Infinity War, people were like, "It's your fault that Thanos snapped because you didn't follow the plan," and got all this hate mail and death threats and everything else. So, people take this stuff way too seriously. He's a man playing a role. He's an actor. Funny enough, he actually had auditioned to play Steve Rogers back, in the original days. They had a laundry list of people, including John Krasinski, to play Steve Rogers before the role went to Chris Evans. But Wyatt Russell did try out for it at the time. I mean, he's a professional hockey player. He wasn't really even an actor. He wasn't acting for very long, and he's had a few roles here and there. I think some voiceover work, and here he is, our new Captain America.
Right. So no hate mail. We don't want to be advocating or,
And hate mail for what? I mean, he hasn't even done anything really.
Well, because I guess because he took over. He took over.
Not my Cap. That's the that's the movement. Although Marvel's selling all kinds of Captain America
They're making a pretty
merchandise.
penny off it. Yes, they are.
Yep, sign right up. All right, I do want to say I do like Hoskins. I'm starting. Hoskins is growing on me. He's the one that kind of pulls John Walker aside and is like, hey, let's calm down a little bit, chill out. What's going on? Seems to be like the angel on the shoulder for him, trying to bring him back down. So kudos to Hoskins. We pick up with the cliffhanger from last week, which was Sam and Bucky going to see Zemo. And Bucky,
which I referred to him as Venmo throughout the entire week leading up to the episode.
That is something completely different.
Yeah. Also not a sponsor of the podcast.
But if you do want to Venmo us, we can give you our handles at the end of the show. Bucky pulls Sam aside and he's like, hey, let me go alone. He doesn't like Avengers, he doesn't like superheroes. He'll talk to me. And Sam questions him, but lets him go through with it. And Bucky's just sort of like, trust me, I got it. And, Bucky goes in to go see Zemo. And the second he walks up, Zemo looks at him and immediately starts rattling off the Hydra code words to activate his programming. And Bucky's like, that doesn't work anymore. And Zemo goes, oh, I know, I figured, but I just wanted to try it, see how you react to the old words. But he does tell Bucky that he senses that something is still in there. And, we get in this scene, we sort of get Zemo he's apologetic. He says, look, it was nothing personal. You were just sort of a means to my end to get rid of the Avengers. It's all good. But
even more appropriate when Machiavelli is brought up throughout the episode.
He's reading Machiavelli in the cell, which, as you're a big fan of Machiavelli's, you know that you have to murder everyone on your way up to your ascent. So that is maybe some foreshadowing. Who knows? But what did you think from seeing Zemo return here? At least his early interactions with Bucky.
Yeah, I was surprised, or maybe I wasn't, but just how easily Bucky went along with Zemo, but I guess realized that he needed to, I don't know, trust him, but this is my only way to solve this problem. So I'm sort of between a rock and a hard place. I have to go with him. Not to give, we'll get to what happens, in a minute, but I was surprised at the amount of acceptance that this is our only hope. We have to go for it right now.
Yeah. So, after the scene kind of shifts in a weird way after Bucky and Zemo have this initial conversation, where now it's Bucky and Sam talking in like this underground garage, and Sam is just sort of like, what do we even need Zemo for? He's got a rap sheet a mile long. He killed, he blew up the Wakandan embassy. He killed all those people. The Wakandans didn't forget. He killed the super soldiers. He framed you for it. Why are we even going here? And Bucky's just, like you said, he's saying he's all we've got. He's the only lead we have. We need to stop these super soldiers. We know that there's at least 8 of them out there, already. That's how we got to do it. And I'm just thinking to myself, there's got to be some other way to do this than just, I got to go to Zemo. Gotta get this done.
Thinking long run. Because of what they did eventually, like now what happens to his part and what happens to all the goodwill that he has now earned, with, as we now learn what happened.
Yeah. So he's talking to Sam about this and he's like, so like hypothetically, if we were to get Zemo out, here's how I'd do it. We could probably stage a fight with the prisoners, and then we could pull a fire alarm and cause all this chaos, and get Zemo out that way. And hypothetically, that would sound about right. So you and I, we're both students of the law, and we know our hypotheticals. And something about this just did not seem like a hypothetical, especially when they were intercutting scenes of Bucky doing these things in the jail. And all of a sudden, Bucky finishes telling Sam, how they would hypothetically get Zemo out of jail, and in walks Zemo into the garage. And Sam is like, what did you do? I want to say Sam throughout this entire episode is sort of just a passenger along for this ride. He doesn't assert himself and really put his foot down. He lets Bucky get away with a lot. And Bucky's just sort of like, look, you stuck your neck out for me once before, on my behalf, and alluding to Civil War, which cost Sam in a lot of ways. I mean, it cost him his freedom. It cost years of his life. He was on the run. And now Bucky's like, could you just do it again? Could you just be there for me one more time? And it's like, well, that's really easy if you guys are partners on this plan. But Bucky did not tell Sam any part of this plan until it was already done. And that leads me to my bold statement of the week. The real villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now, everybody's looking for the next Thanos, who's going to be the throw line bad guy. The bad guy is Bucky Barnes. I have been Team Iron Man since day one of Civil War. And if this episode is not vindication for Team Iron Man in the movie Civil War, I don't know what is. Captain America, Steve Rogers, eat your heart out, because this is what you got. Now, Bucky has always thought that he could do whatever he wanted without any kind of consequences. And here he is busting out Baron Zemo out of jail unilaterally, without any authority, without talking to Sam or anybody else. And it's again because he thinks that he can get away with it and then bring everybody else along for the ride later, forget the consequences to their lives. I just think it's extremely arrogant. I think it's extremely selfish. I don't think Bucky's worth all of this. He is not one of my favorite characters right now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think that he should be in jail. I just think that he should be locked up.
I will not be that bold in my statement, but like you said, actions have consequences, and will they believe that the ends justify the means here? You've gotten one of the world's most dangerous men out of prison. For what? What has, if we don't even know that much about the Flag Smashers right now, what has happened that has caused you to have this crusade against them? Obviously, yes, that they have the super soldier serum, but in terms of damage, in terms of, they seem to be fighting each other right now. Pal Broke Flag Smasher. Why are you so heavily invested in getting involved in that and trying to take both of them down, it seems? And so you're right in that. Why are we devoting this much time to this scenario?
I don't know. I'm my leash with Bucky is very short, and the amount of damage that he has caused in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to the Avengers, to ordinary citizens, and yet he gets to walk around and be free. Like this will come up later, but I think there's a character that's justifiably angry about how her life has turned out since Civil War versus how Bucky's life has turned out since Civil War. Yes, I get that the man was a living pawn robot for a number of years, and he was not responsible for a lot of those things that happened. But his decisions that he's made since he's been back, in reality, if you're looking for a villain, I think he's not very far off from some other characters that people are claiming are the villains of this show. Okay, I had to get that off my chest. There's a lot of Bucky Barnes stands out there, and I just can't do it. Sam gives Zemo the very laughable, typical line when you have a bad guy working with you in you're not allowed to move without our permission. Don't do anything that we'd say not to, or you're going right back to jail. And it's like, sure, Sam. Yep. whatever you say. I will say this: Baron Zemo, or Helmut Zemo, now Baron, as we'll find out in a minute. He is phenomenal, and I enjoy spending time with this character. He steals every scene that he's in, and it gives me very much the Loki vibes when Loki is in scenes with the characters, and he's sort of that antagonist, but he's
You don't,
he's on
I
your
didn't
side.
hate him at all in the episode yesterday. He
Right,
was not the antagonist.
right. Like, so he gives me that sort of Loki feeling, and I hope that his character will continue past this show. I hope that he has a future role in the MCU. I enjoy the way that they're characterizing him, that they've come up with this character. And we know that the inevitable backstab is coming. I mean, the man said that his mission is to eliminate super soldiers. There's one sitting right next to him with a bionic arm. It's just a matter of when. And I just I hope that moment, maybe that'll, like, I'll be cheering for him instead of Bucky. Who knows? So Zemo, he's showing why he's been pulled in. This garage is filled with all these classic cars. It turns out that his family was royalty in Sokovia. A little bit of retconning here because none of this came up in Civil War, it seemed, but it makes sense. I mean, he had a lot of resources in Civil War. He was traveling the globe, so it makes sense that he'd be rich. Apparently he's a baron, which I have to give Marvel credit. Baron Zemo is the name of the character in the comic books. Helmut Zero, I think, or Zemo is a name they gave him later, or maybe it was his son or something else. So they went with Helmut first, but now they've introduced Baron Zemo, and everybody's calling him Baron Zemo, which is what he's called in the comic.
And it was nice to see Alfred make the crossover from DC into Marvel in this
Very
episode.
Batman, yeah, with his private jet, and Zemo had his own butler, and had a nice moment where he said, if anything doesn't smell good, as far as the food, give it to Sam and Bucky. But I do want to, before they jump on that plane, in the garage, as Zemo's going through his old cars, he pulls his jacket, which has like the spotted fur collar, which is a comic book look as well. He also, in the back of one of the cars, pulls out a purple ski mask. And as of right now, it's not very clear what that ski mask is all about, but he grabs it, puts it into a bag very subtly, and he starts talking to Sam and Bucky again. The mask comes into play a little bit later in the episode, but it's still sort of up in the air now. In the comic books, his face is horribly disfigured, so he uses a mask similar to that to cover the scarring and all that. But here, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the purpose of the mask. I don't know if
it could be a foreshadowing.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a deeper meaning for it, or if it's just a way to make him look more like his comic book counterpart. But usually there's a reason for everything in the MCU, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that. Let's see.
Really like the classic cars, though. That was very nice to see as well in these scenes.
Yes, and Zemo has a name that he wants to start with, Selby. He knows where they need to go, so that's where they jump on the airplane. While on the airplane, he's reading his book, it seems, but he's commenting on another book that's inside. It's Bucky's notebook, and he's like, "Oh, Nakajima, who's this? And why are these names circled?" And Bucky jumps out of his chair and tries to throttle him because he's already pickpocketed him, already. But we find out here that is not only a notebook that Bucky is keeping, similar to Captain America's notebook from Winter Soldier. It is Captain America's notebook from Winter Soldier, which I thought was sort of a nice touch there. And we find out that, hey, Sam, remember, he recommended Trouble Man, Marvin Gaye. It's a classic tune. And Bucky's like, nah, I like 40s music. I mean, it's good, but it's no 40s music, which I could hear Marvelous Mike.
Yeah, I think we've had that conversation many a time. Yeah.
Yes, give me my Rhapsody in Blue anytime, please.
That was actually 1924, but we won't get into that.
You know what I mean. Zemo gets a great line here where he's like, "Oh yes, Marvin Gaye captures the African American experience. It's classic. It's great." And Sam's like, "He's out of line, but he's right. Man ain't lying," which I thought was a great moment.
Yes.
Zemo goes a little bit more into like what his deep issues are with superheroes, and he says, there's the problem is people create icons and they put them up on pedestals and they forget that they have flaws. And when, these icons fail, then people die and cities fall. And it's when you think about that monologue, you know, juxtapose that with the John Walker introduction from last week, where, the full football stadium's cheering for this guy. They barely know him. I mean, they barely know him, what he's all about, his capabilities, his flaws. And then we do look back at the MCU as they're each of the Avengers are deeply flawed characters. Maybe Zemo has a point. Maybe these superhero larger than life people, they are acting with way too much autonomy. And here they are breaking supervillains out of jail without any kind of authority. So
and for that sequence again, I thought it was paralleling American history in the moment. When you think of everything in the last year and all statues, not any of the what we've dealt with Confederate, but talking about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Lincoln and all these great American heroes that we have put on pedestals and either whitewashed or refused to talk about their flaws honestly and openly. And what happens now? We want to tear them down, and that's tearing apart at the fabric of the American public for a good portion of the country. So again, it's paralleling, the race relations, the ideology that we're seeing in this show. I think it's an analogies for what's going on now.
It's a great point. And, that's really a tricky needle to thread, because I feel like this show is probably going to be one of Marvel's more divisive shows, just because of the powder keg of what's going on in the landscape right now. So yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And as they continue to touch on these real world ripped from the headlines issues, it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
And you still don't know where the government is or on what side.
Well, GRC, the Global Repatriation Council, they're all working together, rebuilding a better world, man.
Well, we know how that ends up. That later.
So we get a name on the plane of their destination, and that name is Madripoor. And when I heard the name, I geeked out. Madripoor is in the Marvel comics, it's a small southeastern island known for its lawlessness. It's where characters need to go to disappear, to learn information about the seedy underworld. And it's mainly plays a role in the X-Men comics. That's why it was a really big deal that they were using it here, because it's some of the fruits of the 20th Century Fox Disney deal, where they're starting to bring in some more things from the X-Men universe. Madripoor is a big X-Men location, primarily for Wolverine. And one of the things that we see when we get shots of Madripoor later is the Princess Bar is one of the neon signs that are shown, and that is a bar from the comic books that was owned for a time by Wolverine. So Marvel introducing mutants sometime soon, dropping subtle hints. Who knows? But Madripoor is a big deal from a comic books perspective, and really cool to see here now in the live action world.
Didn't phase me from the movie perspective, so.
Before we get to Madripoor, though, they give us a little check-in on what Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers are up to. She was at sort of a shelter. I think it was a GRC shelter, and she's playing soccer, and they pull her aside, and they're like, "It's time." And she goes upstairs, and there's a person in a hospital bed. It's a number of hospital beds, and it seems like a dirty, dingy place. A little bit not a top-notch, place. It doesn't look like, at least. And so, whoever this person is that's in the bed is dying or dies, and Carly is crying over her. We don't really get too much about who this person is. It seemed like some sort of mother figure. I was going to say it is her mother, but then I remember you telling me before, when I said that John Walker's wife walked in, you're like, "Do we know it's his wife?" I said, "Well, I don't want to say this is her mother, but it seemed like a mother figure to her." passes away. And,
just want to make sure the evidence represents what it actually is.
Let's go to Madripoor. We get kind of the three amigos, Sam, Bucky, and Zemo in Madripoor, and they're all in their costumes, their disguises. They're going to assume these identities. Sam is upset because he feels like he looks like a pimp because he's all decked out, and Zemo's like, that's typical American view of African American, nicely dressed. They think that they're pimps, and but it's funny because in the comic books for a time, Sam Wilson did dress up as a pimp and was a pimp. So it's almost like a mini throwback there. Yeah. And also the identity that he was assuming, Smiling Tiger, is a comic books character as well. So
a separate character or something that
separate character. So a little throwback there as well. We get a little bit more about Madripoor. There's a high town and a low town, and high town is all the richy rich and the glamour and the neon, and low town is the dive bars and the seedy criminal element, and they all kind of coexist, smashed together, kind of like Staten Island. There's a lot of clips of neon everywhere, and people on bikes and guns and money exchanging hands and drugs and people tattooed up. And one of the things I noticed as they were showing us around Madripoor was that this place in the comic books has gotten Marvel into trouble for ethnic concerns before, because it's supposed to be a Eastern Asian island, and they've often depicted only people of Asian descent and involved in this criminal underworld, it seems like Marvel has kind of taken that criticism to heart here in the MCU, because you see people of all kinds of different backgrounds.
It was the United Nations over there yesterday.
Yeah, all kinds of different backgrounds, doing business in Madripoor. The other thing I did see was a big graffiti sign that said "The Power Broker is watching," which was kind of, they focused on that for a minute, so wanted to point it out here. Anything else about Madripoor stand out to you?
Well, coming into this scene, it was like, to me, it was the cantina scene in A New Hope. Yes, I was waiting for the band to start playing some jazz as they walked into the bar. But again, a lot of parallels, I felt, at least to that scene.
They're all playing their characters. Zemo keeps referring to Winter Soldier. He had Sam take off his sleeve so they could see his new vibranium arm. The people in the bar were all whispering to each other, "Oh, is that the Winter Soldier? Is that the Winter Soldier?" And Zemo's acting like it's his personal hitman. And Sam is in his Smiling Tiger gear, and they go up to the bar and they're asking about Selby, and the bartender's, "Nope, no Selby here. You can't see Selby." And it's like, "Oh, you want the usual Smiling Tiger?" And Sam's like, "Yeah, sure." Little do we know, he pulls a snake out of a jar, puts it on the bar, guts it open, pours some things into the drink, and hands it to Sam. And Bucky's just kind of looking at him like, "I'm really glad I'm not Smiling Tiger right now." As Sam has to choke down the Smiling Tiger usual, which to his credit he does.
And I believe Marvel is now selling the concoction to make your own Smiling Tiger usual.
Coming soon to a Disney theme park near you. Someone walks up to Zemo, puts his hands on him, and tells him he's not welcome there. And at this point, Zemo just kind of gives like the nod to Bucky to jump into action. And we find out, that the Power Broker is the one that says that Zemo's not welcome there. So maybe they have some kind of history. Zemo claims that he has never met the Power Broker before, but he is judge, jury, and executioner for Madripoor itself. So this person is someone of considerable resources. As we've seen in other episodes, there's a lot of fear surrounding the Power Broker. And Zemo's just like, "Look, I don't have any business with him. I just want to see Selby." But we get a bar fight scene here with Bucky as Winter Soldier. He's throwing people over the bar. He's punching people in the face, doing all this stuff. And I don't think anybody really realized it, but there are a lot of people. The problem with the 21st century everybody has a camera. Everybody has a
Yes,
video
I was
camera
I
in
was
their
loving that
pocket.
they were filming it just like it was in New York.
Yes. Do you think this is going to come back to bite them in the butt?
Oh, I didn't think of that. To me, it was just, sign of the times. Everything is filmed. I didn't think of it being shown later on.
All of them are on that film. I mean, Sam is standing at the bar, and even though he's dressed as Smiling Tiger, I mean, he had no sort of facial disguise
That's
at
right.
all.
Especially when we next see John Walker and the conversation that surrounds him and Hoskin. So that is very interesting to point out. I didn't think
there, Bucky's there, arm out, and everybody's filming this. And the last words he said to his therapist on the way out from couples counseling last week was, what was rule number 2 again? And rule number 2 is don't hurt anybody. Well, there's a lot of people getting hurt right here in this bar. So keep an eye on that. Put a pin in it. May come back later to haunt our heroes. After the bar fight, it must impress somebody because the bartender, he goes off and he's, whispering in the corner, and then he tells him, Selby will see you now. Yeah. So Selby calls him up, and they meet this person. It's this woman who is the head of the bar. She's sharply dressed. She's pretty short with Zemo. She's like, why shouldn't I just kill you? Because you're causing all this commotion in my bar. And Zemo's telling her, Zemo offers Bucky in exchange for information. And he wants information on the super soldier serum. How's it getting out there? What's going on with it? And Selby basically gives him a name, Dr. Wilfred Nagel. And when Zemo asks for follow-up information, she kind of gives him this short little, I'll give you the breadcrumbs for free, but the bakery's going to cost you.
that was a great line, by the way. I had never heard that before.
Write that down. Use that in everyday conversation. But our whole, incognito disguise thing all goes by the wayside because
the dumbest. But this to me was just out of left field.
Good old Sam doesn't turn off his phone vibration and
travel to the other end of the earth. First off, you get service there. God bless you. You didn't have to, alert Verizon that you were traveling out of country.
You just connected to Wi-Fi.
But I mean, that to me was a little bit of, not believable. I guess if our heroes are supposed to be as good as they are, as good as superheroes.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of what we're seeing here is this is definitely the B team. I mean, they didn't get as much time to train and develop as the original 6 Avengers, and even the original 6 Avengers made mistakes all the time. But they're not fully polished yet, it feels like. And this is one of those things where so much was going on for poor Sam that maybe it slipped his mind, I don't know, but his phone goes off in his pocket. Selby hears it. He looks at the phone. It's Sarah, his sister, calling him. And Selby's like, oh, put it on speaker, answer it, and so Sam is trying to do the tough guy, oh yeah, we'll go to the bank, and
kill them all.
Yeah, we're gonna kill that banker that didn't give us the money. And to her credit, Sarah's kind of like, well, what are you talking about? What are you trying to do with your voice, and they're almost getting away with this one-sided conversation thing
until the fatal mistake that
she calls him real Sam. Name. Yeah. She says, Sam, I gotta go. The kids are spilling Cheerios or something. And Selby's just like, Sam, who's Sam? And that just blows the whole thing. But she gets blasted in the chest by a gunshot out of nowhere and is down on the floor dead, before we can really, put this together. And all of a sudden, big fight breaks out. Sam, Bucky, they're trying to fight their way out. Zemo, they knock everybody out in the room except for Zemo. And Zemo's like, all right, we've got to leave now. We've got a big problem. Don't take any weapons. So they walk out unarmed of the bar, thinking they could just kind of stroll out of there. But word hits the underground very fast that Selby is dead.
They sent a crazy ransom.
Yep, 1 million in Bitcoin or something like that. I saw it was in the Bitcoin symbol for Selby's murderers, and all hell breaks loose. I mean, now it's every hitman, every criminal lowlife, they're all out to get Sam, Bucky, and Zemo because they were the last ones seen talking to Selby. While they're running around because they have no weapons, all of the people that are about to do any kind of harm to them are getting gunned down left and right. They're dropping. And it's like, whoa, what's going on? And Zemo even says, like, oh, you must have a guardian angel or something, you know? And somebody steps out of the shadows, walks down from an upper story building, comes down, has a hood up, pulls the hood down, and reveals herself to be Sharon Carter. And I got the best text from you while you were watching this. Sharon, who's Sharon Carter? Like, but that is to your credit, that is her whole point. They forgot about her. Everybody forgot about Sharon Carter, including you, but everybody forgot about Sharon Carter.
And to our point, Civil War was not one of our favorites movies. Oh, I mean, great movie. I loved it because it was really like Avengers 2.5, but it really made us dislike Captain America. And that's what we took from that movie more than anything else.
You should have been disliking Bucky Barnes. But anyway, Sharon Carter, yes, we have not seen her since Captain America, Civil War. She makes a point. She's like, I've been living off the grid in Madripoor. I haven't seen my family. I haven't seen my father. They don't have extradition here in Madripoor, so I can stay here. But I got thrown, I'm living on the run because I busted your wings, Sam, out to save Bucky from Zemo. And here you're all standing in front of me, best of friends. So the last however many years, because it's not really clear if she's been blipped or not. I mean, I think there was a scene in Infinity War or Endgame where she was one of the listed, people who had disappeared. But there's a lot of back and forth right now in the community about, well, did she really get blipped, or has she just been living
the whole
on the run and been there the whole time? Because she has a lot of resources, as we find out here in Madripoor, and that's a lot for her to have put together in the 6 months if she's just been back from the blip. So I think she may have survived the entire 5-year period. But basically,
now, for those viewers, could you just go through once more what she did in Civil War?
Yes. So Sharon Carter was Agent 13. I think she was first introduced in The Winter Soldier as Captain America's nurse / potential love interest neighbor who was keeping an eye on him for S.H.I.E.L.D. And then she finds out, throughout the course of that film, that S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually Hydra. And so she's trying to help him, liberate or get rid of the Hydra agents, that he has to deal with in that movie. And they don't quite get together, I think, in that film. But then she comes back in Civil War. She's now working for the Chief Terrorism Organization or something, the CTO. So she has like a government position at that point. And she steps in here to take Steve's side. This is where we find out that she is Peggy Carter's niece, and she was inspired by Peggy to go into S.H.I.E.L.D. and go, make that her life's work. But she broke out of the CTO, Bucky's wings, because Bucky was considered a fugitive for siding with Team Cap. And she aided Cap, giving him some resources and things in the Civil War itself, in their stance against the U.S. government. So for her role in that, everybody else is getting pardoned and able to live a free life in America. Sam is fine, Bucky's fine, all the other Avengers are doing fine, but nobody has checked in on Sharon Carter, and nobody has, given her any sort of, she's living the Julian Assange life, living on the run. She has gotten no pardons whatsoever. So, yeah, I mean, she's justifiably angry, I feel like. I mean, especially when we see Bucky just walking into Berlin prisons making demands when he, killed a whole bunch of people. But yes, so don't feel bad. You're not the only one that forgot about Sharon Carter. So did the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Probably the only one that I'll be watching this podcast of that forgot about her.
So she is running an illegal art gallery in Madripoor. She, they make a joke that most of the things that are in America or that are in museums are fake. Bucky or Sam tries to Google it, and Bucky's like, no, it's really a thing. You don't have to Google it. These are all the real thing. They go on these illegal art markets. And, Sharon, she's laying into both of them, Sam and Bucky. She's basically saying, like, superheroes are a joke. It's all a bunch of hypocrisy. I can't blame you for giving up the shield. And Sam is trying to get her to help them. And once again, he's doing his Boy Scout thing where he's like, no, I can get you a pardon. I can get you excused, just help us out here. And she's like, yeah, sure, Sam, whatever. And it's like nobody's taking Sam very seriously in this entire episode. But, I think they later strike some kind of bargain or agreement. She finally believes him. But she basically calls Sam out for being a hypocrite with the whole superhero thing. And then she calls Bucky out for basically being, Captain America's Boy Scout sidekick when he was, after he was done being controlled by Hydra. So it was just nice to see Sharon Carter she's like not pulling any punches. She's taking it to both of them. She's just very jaded at this point, and she's living a life of crime. And she's.
Can I make a prediction now?
Yeah.
Are we not supposed to think that she is the power broker?
No, I mean, at this point, there's no indication to seem like she is the power broker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, what we know of the power broker, we know that. At this point, we don't know very much about the power broker, but what we know is everybody keeps referring to the power broker as a he, which may be misdirection. Who knows?
Thank you.
We know that the power broker has considerable influence over the goings on in Madripoor, which whether or not she has enough of a influence for that, who knows? But we also know, and we find out later, Sharon helps them get to this Dr. Nagel that they got from Selby. There's this art party scene where they're all, having a great time at the party. We get Zemo kind of dancing a little bit, which I thought was great. And during the party, Sharon gets, the location for them of where Nagel is. So she's playing, at least if she is the power broker, she's playing pretty dumb, or making them jump through some hoops first in order to get where they need to go.
Well, the only reason I said it, for two reasons. First, there was that sign, power broker is always watching.
Mm-hmm.
And she was watching them when they needed help the most with Selby to kill and everybody else during that hunt. And then just, I guess that was really the only.
Well, I mean, my question would be then, what's in it for her, right? Like, what's her goal here? Because we know that the power broker had this super soldier serum.
Yeah,
I know that it was stolen by the Flag Smashers.
Yes, and Nagel would help lead them to Morgenthau and the rest of them. And so that's why she wants them to succeed and not, kill Zemo right there. They need to get to Morgenthau and get the rest of the serum or destroy it or bring it back. And that's what she needs them to do.
Okay.
Again, this is just one of my far-fetched hypotheticals.
Maybe.
Again,
it's
who
just
the power broker is, or at least alluded to thoughts of it last week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that I'm incorrect based on what you know of the power broker previously.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of the MCU. They use your comics knowledge against you sometimes, where, characters like, for example, Iron Man 3, in the Iron Man 3, the Mandarin turns out not to be, this guy that they'd been setting up for half the movie. It turns out to be somebody
Gandhi Who, Ben Kingsley's finest role.
Right. So, I mean, that is nothing like the comic books. Adrian Killian is a completely different character from the Mandarin. So, I don't know. You can't go by that, but we'll see. I mean, Sharon has definitely taken a turn for the criminal element now, and she's selling these illegal art things to survive. She's living in Hightown. She's made a name for herself, and she does leave this conversation by basically doing a handshake agreement with Sam that she's going to get a pardon at the end of this. Who knows? So she leads Sam, Bucky, and Zemo to Nagel, who is in the shipping container. He's got a secret lab.
I believe that was on the Evergreen, actually, that container that was stuck in the Suez Canal. That's why it was stuck there for the last week or so.
So Nagel could have some more time to get the
Yes.
vials and everything.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Interestingly enough, I wrote this down. It's Zemo that finds that there is a secret wall in the shipping container that leads down to Nagel's lab. I have seen some theories out there that the power broker may be Zemo. Maybe he was pulling strings while he was in jail. But he is the one that finds the secret lab entrance. They go down to the lab and we meet Dr. Wilfred Nagel. And funny enough, while all this is going on, Sharon Carter is having like her own adventure outside in the shipping containers, because apparently hitmen from Madripoor are still tailing them. And, so Sharon Carter is like taking them down. I mean, she's vicious. She's smacking people around with a lead pipe.
There was one pipe went through the guy.
And throwing knives, shooting people dead on sight. I mean, there's just all of her CIA shield training.
And again, everything. I think this is the most, I don't want to say gratuitous violence, but the most intense violence that we've seen in an MCU series.
So interesting enough, I think the director, or maybe it's the writer, but the director, there's a connection here to someone who's involved with the John Wick movies. Which are also known for very violent, the Keanu Reeves John Wick trilogy. And it's a very similar story where like a guy is like trying to get revenge, and, he kills all these people, high body count, and sort of we're seeing that paralleled with Sharon Carter here. But she's taking down hitmen outside the shipping containers while they're dealing with Nagel inside. Man, she can fight. Sharon Carter, she can handle her own. She was taken down. I mean, she at least took down 15 people by herself out there. So Nagel gives us a little bit more background on what's been going on with the super soldier serum since I would say Winter Soldier, or Civil War, because he starts off by saying, when the Siberian Winter Soldier program failed, and there were 5 viable subjects that were created after Captain America. That was during the Civil War movie. They thought that was the whole gist of the movie. They thought they were going to release these 5 super soldiers out into the world. They had to stop them. Turns out Zemo murdered them while they were still in their test tubes. And it was all set up to get the Avengers there so he could play the Iron Man video. But after those 5, there wasn't another successful attempt at the super soldier serum until, the CIA picked up Nagel from Hydra. The CIA hired him to try to continue developing this program. So this is a US-led effort to recreate the super soldier serum. He found blood from a semi-stable US subject. And then, it shows Sam thinking back that this is Isaiah Bradley, who we met last week, but never said out loud. So we don't know if it's Bradley's blood that he's really talking about. But he used that blood to synthesize a new form of super soldier serum. He said he's the first one since Dr. Erskine, who was Stanley Tucci's character in Captain America: The First Avenger, to perfect this formula. And he said what's great about his version is that it doesn't require any kind of body modification, no machinery, nothing like that. It's subtle, he says. And I think what he means by that is that the person taking it retains their shape. Like Carly Morgenthau looks like a teenage girl or young adult woman, and yet they have all the strength and speed and stamina of a super soldier. I thought this was kind of interesting because this is not the first time we've seen the US government dabbling with super soldier serum. This is, if you remember the Incredible Hulk with General Thunderbolt Ross, Thaddeus Ross, he was trying to recreate the serum himself as well with his scientists, and they ended up creating the Abomination with Eric Blonsky, giant monster. They had, part of the reason why Bruce Banner is the Hulk is because they were trying to recreate the super soldier serum. So like every time they've tried to recreate this, it's resulted in horrible things. But now we have viable super soldier serum, and the formula has been cracked.
And there's also, it made it sound a little open-ended. When Nagel was saying it, I almost got it, and then I was blipped.
Yes.
And then I came back, and I came here because the power broker was willing to fund the the money that the CIA wasn't able to anymore. My thought immediately was, well, what if the CIA didn't need you anymore? What if they had cracked the code during those last 5 years and already had their own serum based on the work that you had done for them previously?
Yeah.
So that there may be more than just these 20 vials out there.
Right. He reveals that he's come up with 20. They ask him, how many vials have you created? He says 20. And the assumption is, because Zemo at that point has heard enough. He's heard all he needs. They get another name out of him because Carly Morgenthau contacted him to try to help this person named Danya Medante, who has tuberculosis. And he was like, nope, not my problem. He says it's like, not my pig, not my farm, or something, like really heartless. This guy, he does a really good job of being both creepy and like, also kind of nerdy at the same time, and just an arrogant jerk. And
now, my mind went to, that was the woman in the hospital. Is that not?
Yes.
Okay.
No, that is the woman in the hospital. Carly apparently approached him to try to help her, and he didn't respond or didn't care enough to do it. And at that point, Zemo, having gotten sort of more information, another breadcrumb, decides he's going to shoot Nagel dead. And he shoots Nagel dead without any kind of authority, and doesn't wait for Sam, doesn't wait for Bucky. They all are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And Zemo is doing what he told them he was going to do. He wants to end this super soldier thing once and for all. And then as Sharon is fighting outside, she comes into the shipping container lab, and she tells them, look, we've got really big problems outside. We got to go. Somebody with a rocket launcher shoots the shipping container, and it blows up. It starts a fire in the lab, and the lab vials start to explode, and our heroes all escape out of the lab, leaving Nagel's body in there to burn. My question is, did he not write anything down? Does he not have computer backup somewhere? I mean, we're led to believe that, like, now that this lab has blown up and Nagel is dead, there are only these 20 vials of super soldier serum floating around, hypothetically now down to 12 because 8 of the Flag Smashers have taken it. Is that all? I mean, is that it? And like I said before, Ross has been trying to get a new super soldier serum going forever. Where is he? Is he part of this? Who else out there has been trying to do this super soldier serum? I mean, I think Russia has their own version that they had been trying to do in the comic books, and may tie into the Black Widow movie coming up. There was a whole subplot of the Peggy Carter TV show streaming on Disney Plus. If you haven't checked it out, it's pretty good. About trying not to let Steve's blood samples out into the public so that they could recreate the super soldier serum. So anyway, there are 12 vials of pure, ready to go super soldier serum out there. Who else may have access to these vials? Where are they? That is now the thrust of the show. What's that?
The government. I don't know. I still say the U.S. is not the good guys in this, and that they are want to get Morgenthau because they are the ones that have created the super soldier serum. They have it as well.
And that's why I bring us back to Ross, because Ross is still working for the government, and it was his life's work. The reason why he, was kind of disgraced at the end of Incredible Hulk is because his attempt failed. And I think he's still hanging around. He was the one overseeing the Avengers in Civil War. He still pops up from time to time. I think he may still have a role to play in this. We might see him come up.
Let's go back a few weeks, and somebody on this podcast mentioned the Thunderbolts, and I think was laughed out of Marveldom completely.
Yep, you weren't allowed to come back ever again.
But
funny you should mention that. Now that we have Zemo, we have Bucky, we have Ross, we have the super soldiers, all this stuff going on, it does kind of lend itself to a Thunderbolts tie-in of some kind, because in the comic books, The Thunderbolts was Zemo's pet project. These reformed villains, anti-heroes. And he was always like a thorn in Bucky's side, and Bucky took over the program as well. They're circling that drain, and when it happens, you will have. I'll give you 1 minute of uninterrupted gloating that you can.
Man, I wish more than 10 people watched this show so I would become famous.
Oh man, yes, we will give you all the credit in the world for your crazy theory. But first, we have to take care of this gunfight out. Now, this is total action scene. People are shooting through these shipping containers.
Yes, I think it's very important before we get to that.
Yeah.
Zemo appears to escape.
Yes,
and
they get separated from Zemo.
Yes, and leave our heroes to potentially fend for themselves.
Yes.
So you're sitting and watching, thinking, all right, now he's abandoned them. Now, he's back to being his villainous self.
Yeah, this would be the typical spot, right? Where like the villain gets away and, they're kind of stuck now without a trace, and, their agreement is dead, right? But, Sam and Bucky have some banner here about like, oh, you were supposed to follow me. I went left. You went right.
Every movie they go left.
Yeah. Sharon's taking people down, and we get a scene. Zemo, he's got the mask in his hand. He stands at the edge of a shipping container, above them, puts the mask on slowly, and fires on a pipe and blows up the pipe, and then jumps off the shipping container and takes down these guys in hand-to-hand combat. I mean, he was trained in Sokovian military training or whatever that is. But it seems like, he's with the mask on, he's like taking all these guys out right in front of Sam and Bucky. And he finds a car, and, he pulls up and picks up Sam and Bucky. He takes the mask off when he's driving, the car, which I'm like, well, I don't know. Again, like, what is this mask? Is this a mask? Does he not want them to see the mask? Does it have some kind of meaning? What's going on with the mask? I gotta know. But he takes the mask off. He picks them up in the car. Bucky jumps in the front passenger seat. Sam jumps in the back. They're looking at Sharon. They're like, come on, come with us. Cause this is kind of turning it on its ear, right? Like, I thought that Sharon, Bucky, and Sam now would be working together and Zemo would be off, but they're back with Zemo. And Sharon's like, nope, I can't go back to the States because I'm still wanted, but get me that pardon, we'll talk about it. And we get a great...
Almost as if she's brokering a deal.
It's very weird that she doesn't just come with them, because they're violating every other law out there. I mean, why stop here? And it's a private jet too, so who would know that she's there in the first place? Anyway, she doesn't go with them. And, we get this throwback to Civil War, which is the scene where Bucky's in the back and Sam's in the front passenger seat, and Bucky's like, can you move your seat? And Sam's just, no. Well, we get the reverse of that. And Sam's like, you're not going to move your seat up, are you? And Bucky's like, no. They ride off into the sunset. Sharon turns a corner in the shipping containers, and there is a woman waiting for her with a car. And she's like, look, we've got some problems. A couple of them, actually. I'll tell you about it in the car. And they ride off. Where is she going? Who is she working with? What is that all about? You think she's the power broker?
I really do. I really do.
I
feel my Thunderbolts one, I pulled that out of thin air. But I think everything is setting itself up for her to be the power broker, or working hand in hand with the power broker, because how else would they have escaped if the power broker didn't want them to escape?
I think she's working with New Cap. I think she's a really? John Walker. I think she's still in there with the government through and through, and I think she's working with the government on this one. She's still good. She's not quite the criminal that she's led us on to believe all this time. That's my theory. Also, this week, as Marvel has been doing, they released a whole bunch of Sharon Carter merchandise, shirts and posters, and it was really playing up the fact that she's this wanted person. It's like got like wanted all over, and it's her with the hood up and everything. But yeah, you can get your Sharon Carter shirts available now on the Marvel.com store. we catch up with Carly and a friend of hers, one of the other Flag Smashers, and they're like talking about, what life was like, what led them to go to Madripoor. Carly wanted to be an educator, and you and I both have educators in our lives, and we know that when we make them angry, we also get punched through walls and kicked downstairs and everything else. So I don't think it's super soldier serum at all. I think it's just something that educators get day one, and that's how they handle the craziness that they have to handle.
We support educators and higher education very much in my
don't
house.
Make them angry. But she wanted to be a teacher, and things happened, and they're commiserating over Danya's death, and she already knows that Nagel's been killed in Madripoor, which is like, word travels very fast in this world, that she's like, oh yeah, now that Nagel's dead, we have all the vials, the power broker will be coming to us, begging us for what's left. And she's got plans for kids that are still stuck in the camps, that she wants to help them out. And I'm like, wow, they are really humanizing our villains here, making us feel bad for them,
and especially when she describes when she took the serum,
yes,
how all the pain and how her body she felt it was on fire, and she just wanted to end it.
So for all of Nagel's boasting that he is a god, that he's come up with the perfect serum, not quite that great yet. There's still some issues for the tests, the subjects that are taking it. But yeah, it makes you kind of feel bad for her, maybe, I don't know, because the next scene that we get is we're catching up with Newcap and Hoskins, and they're walking through the Berlin prison, and they're like, oh, how did Zemo get out? And John Walker's like, I know Sam and Bucky had something to do with this, I just know it. And Hoskins goes, well, we can't pin anything on them, we need actual proof. And John Walker is basically saying, look, we're going to get this done. Doesn't matter how. Let's go, outside the official channels. They're not going to care how we get it done. It's just that we got it done. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's kind of like Bucky and Sam's whole MO right now. Yep. They're just doing anything, whatever it takes to get things done. So as angry as everybody wants to be at new Captain America,
he's just doing the same thing everybody else is doing.
He's just 2 steps behind. But he's doing the same thing. So whatever they're doing next, whatever they're planning next, they're going to do something off the books, whatever that means. So will be interesting to see what happens there. But that's our only John Walker scenes this week. So we'll have to catch up with them next week. We get a conversation between Sam, Bucky, and Zemo on the airplane home. And Sam at this point is thinking, maybe it was a mistake to give the shield back to the museum. I should have destroyed it. Because the symbol, he's starting, I think Zemo is throughout this entire episode, he's just needling at both Sam and Bucky, getting under their skin, getting under their heads. And he's now sounding very much like Zemo in the first plane ride to Madripoor, where he's, talking about the icons and, these symbols need to be destroyed. Now Sam is saying, basically agreeing with him, I should have destroyed this shield. It shouldn't exist anymore. And that makes Bucky very angry, because he's like, that shield means something to a lot of people. It means something to me, and he goes, I should have just stolen it myself, taken it back and taken the shield. And if the last thing that the world needs is Bucky Barnes as Captain America, that is nobody wants that.
But again, it goes, and it's just, again, paralleling our current conversation, when we put more emphasis in the symbol rather than the ideals that they supposedly symbolize.
Mm-hmm. And then we find out that they know on the airplane that Madane has died in Riga. They get a location, so that's where they're headed. And Zemo ends the conversation by saying, he's looking very forward to meeting Carly Morgenthau. And, I'm thinking to myself, so Sam and Bucky so far have kind of let Zemo run this whole thing, and he's made it very clear that he wants to end all super soldiers everywhere. So are they just going to let him kill this little girl, or what is their plan here? Like, they've got to step in at some point. They didn't do very much to help Nagel out. So
yeah, but if their plan isn't to end, you see, that's where this is sort of, aren't they also trying to get rid of all the flag smashers?
I don't think they want to kill them.
Then what do they want to do? Have them over for dinner?
Well, I think they're hoping to put them in some kind of high security prison, maybe the RAF that we saw in Civil War, something that handles super powered individuals. Some sort of prison. I don't think they intend to kill her.
No, maybe I was being a bit facetious, but I would say they don't want to just continue, they want to just meet up with them and then let them continue leading their lives.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they're gonna be at odds. If they're not gonna outright murder them, then that's what Zemo's gonna do, because we've already seen him do it. So that's gonna come to a head soon. So they've got to start thinking about that now. Sam, to this point, like I said, he's just been along for the ride. I think he needs to really start formulating a plan here and trying to get ahead of things rather than just reacting to everything. That's going to fall on him, and it's not fair, but that's the position that Bucky has put him in by making these moves. We catch up with the Flag Smashers. They are at a Global Repatriation Council, GRC supply depot. They've tied up, one of the guards or something, and they're yelling at him because these supplies have been held up for 6 months, and surprise, surprise, the government can't distribute items that would save a lot of people in an efficient and timely manner. where have we ever heard that before? Ripped from the headlines. This was filmed way before.
But it's an allegory for everything that's happened. That is so funny because yes, all this has happened before
COVID, before the vaccine rollout, before any of that stuff,
before all the riots of the last year. That is really something, how it really is playing right into what's going on.
Yeah. But anyway, 6 months of supplies. They have been just sitting on it, haven't been getting it out. So the Flag Smashers are going to get it out for them. When they get back into the car, Carly's friend is like, "Oh, that's not our car." She's like, "Nope, we're taking this one. Get your seatbelt on." And no, seriously, get your seatbelt on, buckle up. And, all of a sudden the entire building blows up. Carly has now set off a bomb. Her friend is concerned because he's like, there were still innocent people in there. They had nothing to do with this. And she's like, well, that's the only message that they'll understand. So for as sympathetic and as humanizing as they were trying to make the Flag Smashers, here they are just killing innocent people. And, now they've kind of crossed that line. In Riga, Zemo is leading Sam and Bucky to his apartment or safe house or something. And they have a conversation about the status of Sokovia. Sokovia has now been wiped off the map. It's been cannibalized by its neighbors. It no longer exists. Zemo asks the two if they have been to see the memorial, and they do not respond. Silence. And he goes, "Nope, why would you? Of course not." So kind of showing once again, there's been so much going on that these heroes tend to forget about the collateral damage of things that happen around them, and the people that it affects. Before they go into the apartment building, Bucky's like, "Hey guys, I got to take a walk. Got to clear my head. Need to do something." And he leaves them, starts walking around Riga, and he's picking up these little beads. And did you know what these were before the reveal?
Oh, yes.
Or no?
Oh,
okay.
yes.
All right, picking up the beads. They're like these little techno beads. Looking at them, he picks up one more.
Were they in the other movies?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, just confirming.
Looks at it and he's like, I think he dropped this, and there's nothing around him. He turns again, and there is Ayo, who is the second in command of the Dora Milaje from the Black Panther. And he's like, "I was wondering when you were going to show up." And she looks at him, just stone cold stare, and is like, "I'm here for Zemo." And that's how the episode ends. That's now 3 episodes in a row that end with like the introduction of a new character, and then boom, right to black. First one was John Walker. The second one was Zemo, and now here we have Ayo from Black Panther. Those were their communication beads on their wristlets that they wear. Those little beads. So yeah, we get some of the Wakanda score back. Is great. I don't know if you remember, but Ayo was actually the the member of the Dora Milaje, the King's Guard, who was with King T'Chaka, who was killed in Civil War by Zemo. So it's funny to see her here. It's symbolic to see her here because the king died kind of on her watch, and the person responsible for it is in this town. A lot of questions here. Like, did Bucky summon them, or fill them in on what's going on to kind of hand Zemo to them? Or is Bucky now going to have to fight them? I mean, what does Ao's presence, mean to this show? I mean, we've got so many different factions going on right now. We've got
we got 3 episodes to clear it up.
3 episodes to go. So we've got Sam, Bucky, and Zemo. We've got John Walker, Cap, and Hoskins, and the GRC. We've got Sharon Carter. We've got the Power Broker. We've got the Flag Smashers and Carly Morgenthau. And now we have Wakanda brought into it.
And we have Sam's family drama that's happening back home. What
are they going to do with the boat?
That's right.
So that's the Power Broker. And we still don't know who the Power Broker is.
Yes, we
they're
do.
Still leaving it in a mystery. Your prediction is we have met the Power Broker, and her name is Sharon Carter. Okay. All right.
Yes, it is. That is my prediction. That is my hill that I will die on for this show. And I got my action. So I was happy. Very satisfied after this episode. And we actually just watched it on Monday night. So that makes me happy that I could watch the new one. I don't have to wait a whole week. We have just 3 more days at this point.
No spoilers, huh?
No. Actually, I guess I don't. You're the only real Marvel enthusiast I follow anywhere.
Well, it's funny. I don't know if it's because I muted half of the words from the show so that I don't get spoiled, but I don't see as much of a chatter about this show as WandaVision was. And maybe that's because this is more straightforward action and WandaVision was a lot more mystery. But it doesn't seem like this has had the same sort of water cooler conversations as the other shows do. But they're introducing a lot of really key things in this show that could have a bigger effect in the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, in shows to come. Like,
and my question is, because you said this was not definitely a one and done series, are they setting it up for a movie or are they setting it up for season 2?
Good question. Right now we know there is a Black Panther 2. I have not seen anything that involves the Bucky or Sam characters officially. There's no like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the movie, that's been announced. I don't see anything that involves Sharon Carter. I don't see anything that involves Zemo.
Because with Wanda, we saw that sort of go into the next Doctor Strange. So
yes, yeah, we knew that ahead of time. So
see where this might be going, if anywhere.
We don't know. I mean, they only have 3 episodes left, and like we said last week, I hope that they don't. I hope they don't promise too much and try to cram it all in at the last hour, because it's just not going to be enough time for them to really breathe. And some of the, like I said, what they're introducing here by introducing Isaiah Bradley and Madripoor and these super soldiers that may be out there, it's really sowing a lot of seeds threads that they could pull later and just give us more.
Yeah, I don't resolve it sloppily.
Yeah. So, what do you think? What did you think of this episode versus the others, and what would you like to see next week?
I liked it. Like I said, it was action. It was very much plot driven, but it wasn't so much setting up. It was setting up, action. We learned a lot. We like I said, we had, not to be redundant, we had that action. I'd like to see resolution on one of our storylines or this upcoming week. But if my theory serves correct, at the end of this episode, there will be some type of event that will then set the scene for the 3rd act of our play that has to be resolved.
Yeah. I would like to see a few more of the edges of the map get filled in, just in terms of, so who is the Power Broker? I think that's hopefully going to be resolved next week. What is John Walker's, move? What is the end game? Who who should we be rooting for here? Who shouldn't we be rooting for? Who are we rooting against? That is very murky right now.
Yeah, I think the only one you could clearly, definitively say has, no blemishes right now is Sam.
Yeah. And I mean, his blemish is going along with all this. I mean,
right.
In these things that are going on. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles the negativity, if there is any, and the repercussions of what they've done to this point. And, if that break between them and Zemo happens, where is it going to happen? How are they going to handle it?
And was it worth it?
Was it worth it? Was it worth it to get these breadcrumbs and the trail of destruction that they're leaving behind them everywhere they go? It's going to be interesting. All right, with that, let's call episode 3 finished for now. Do you have anything that you'd like to plug this week?
Just going to be enjoying my Palmer's chocolate. Have a lot of it left over from Easter. So going to be enjoying Parsnip Pete and his friends. What do I got plug in? Front Row Conversations returns this Sunday night on the Minty Awards page. Beautiful spring has arrived here in the New York City area. So that's what we'll be enjoying this week.
Very nice. Very nice.
I'll make my prediction. Yankees continuing to beat up on Baltimore. So we're not undefeated like some other teams.
I have to check if that's still the case.
Yes. But at least we're not Gonzaga. I'll say that much.
Oh, man. That was rough. So on the Level Up side, we are getting ready for Level Up Entertainment Site B, the second store location in Summers Point. We just got a Jurassic Park pinball machine in at the new location. It's based on the new Jurassic Park by Stern. So we're very excited to unveil that. It's kind of like a soft opening. That's going to be, we'll have, later on when it's safe, we'll have like a big, party or tournament or some kind of event like we usually do. But yes, if you are, listening to this and you want to check out a new pinball machine, come on down to Level Up in Mays Landing and try out the Jurassic Park machine. And other than that, check us out on shoplevelup.com and stay tuned. We have 3 more episodes of Level Up Watches, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier to go. Mike, anything else for this week?
Don't forget to check out Level Up North in my father's basement if you want any other good vintage diecast.
Yeah, nobody's going there. So for my co-host who's trying to sell off his father's things, I am Harry. I've been your host. It's been great, and we'll catch you guys next week. To be continued.
Good night, everybody.